All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We've got Broncos legend and member of the Broncos Ring of Honor, Mr. Karl Mecklenburg. Karl, how's everything going for you?
Going well, thanks, Zach.
Absolutely. So, season's finally a wrap. What was your thoughts on the season as a whole, and what was your takeaway from last night's Super Bowl?
Well, it's a tough season for my Denver Broncos. a lot of stuff went wrong, and that happens. Then the Super Bowl was interesting. The Super Bowl, I've seen that before. When John Elway played his last game, he wasn't nearly the great quarterback that he had been earlier on in his career, but he had a great team around him, and he was a great leader, and that helped. Same thing with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's last game was a Super Bowl game, and he was a shadow of him for his former self athletically. But he was the great leader and the guy who got everybody else in the right position to win the game. I think you saw the same thing out of Brady. I mean, Brady didn't win that game. Their defense played great. Brady didn't make any mistakes. He got people in the right position. We made the right adjustments, depending on whether they were blitzing or weren't blitzing or what was happening, and they won the game. But it was not, it cracks me up when I see they always have the quarterback as the MVP of the game. I mean, Brady was just one of the guys out there. I mean, you could have given it to 3, 4, 5. I mean, Gronk probably would have been a good choice. Shaq Barrett would have been a good choice. I mean, there were some great individual efforts in that game, and Brady was one of them.
At what point in the game did you know it was over?
Right after halftime, when Tampa marched right down and scored again. I think that was it. When I watch those games, I hope that when there's a blowout, that the blowout is worse than the blowouts that I lost in, so I can move down the line in those games.
Do you think a lot of former defensive guys liked the outcome of last night's game because all the talk of recent years has been, oh, you got to have the quarterback, and now maybe it's turning to, well, you can have a great defense and still win Super Bowls?
Sure, you got to have both. To make the playoffs, you can make the playoffs with a great quarterback. It's tough to make the playoffs without a decent quarterback. It really is. So, but to win the championship, more often than not, it's a defensive showing. Kansas City didn't have either of their starting tackles, and that made a huge difference.
And it's just you brought up the Broncos season obviously didn't go as planned. What were your thoughts up to your takeaways on the season?
Well, they lost Von Miller right at the start. Von has really been the heart and soul of that team for a while, and I think that hurt more than anything. And then that just a lot of up and down and back and forth, and no continuity, I guess. They don't have an identity offensively. You don't know if they're a running team or a passing team or what they're doing. Defensively, they've been strong, but they lost 3 of their front four guys early on in the season, and they didn't come back. So I mean, you do that, and it's tough.
Is Drew Lock the guy going forward? Have you seen enough, or do you need to see more?
Oh, you got to see more from Drew. Drew's statistics and rankings and stuff are in the bottom 5 guys in the NFL. That's not good enough to win championships, and that's what the Denver Broncos have been all about for a long time. So unless he turns a corner, and that can happen, but unless he turns a corner, they'll find another guy. And obviously the new GM has already been in the hunt for the guys that are available at this point. So we'll see. Drew, he's a leader. I think he's still making the adjustment, and the adjustment from college football to pro football is a lot bigger jump than it used to be. College football, everything's shotgun, everything's option type run pass option stuff that they don't. I mean, very few teams do in the NFL. You got to be able to line up under the center. You got to be able to make adjustments. You can't, look to the sidelines and see the coach hold up a sign to say, okay, wait a second, I got to change something. But that's what happens in That's what happens in college ball. So it's a big jump, and he hasn't made it yet.
Had they named you GM, what would be your first order of business in free agency and the draft?
Wow. My first move would be to continue with some consistency on the team and try to re-sign, the guys that are free agents and guys that are. The biggest challenge I think that the Broncos have faced is just a lack of consistency. And people say, well, if you don't have a good couple seasons, you got to fire the coach and hire another coach. And to me, it's like a chicken and an egg. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, if you have some consistency, then everybody understands what they're supposed to do, and where they're supposed to be, and how they're supposed to act, and you can develop some winning culture. And that's really, really difficult to do with so many new guys, so many new coaches, so many changes over and over and over. That's the hallmark. That's what you see when you see a losing team. Is that what makes them a losing team, or is that what losing teams do? I don't know, but I think you got to have some stability before you're going to have success.
And I got one last current question for you. So I know you're still waiting on the call from Canton, but over the weekend we found out that two former Broncos, John Lynch and Peyton Manning, are both getting in next year. How happy were you for them to find out that they're finally going to be immortalized in Canton, Ohio?
Yeah, I'm excited for them. That's a big deal. And they're both guys that, their last few years they spent with the Broncos are probably not going to be identified as Broncos in the Hall of Fame, but the people in Denver really have felt slighted for a long time. There really haven't been a representation of the great teams of the past in the Hall of Fame. But Steve Atwater and because they didn't have the ceremony this year. So Steve will be there, and Steve spent almost his entire career here in Denver. And then, like I said, or like you said, you got Peyton and you got John Lynch, and both are guys that spent enough time in Denver that we identify with them. So that's exciting.
So if somebody were to look you up and it says College, Minnesota, it's not that simple. Can you explain how you got there?
Yeah, I was 6 feet tall and 200 pounds when I graduated from high school. I grew 3 inches and 40 pounds my first year of college. I was at a Division II school, Augustana College in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, on a 1/3 scholarship, with the understanding if I play well, they'd give me a full scholarship, right? So I got there. I grew 3 inches and 40 pounds. I got good. My second year there, I led the team in sacks. I played every down on defense. I expected that the coach was going to call me in and sit me down and say, Karl, we love what you're doing for us. You got to be a full scholarship player for us. He sat me down and said, Karl, we know your dad's a doctor. He can afford this school. We're going to take away your scholarship and use it to bring someone else in. So I left and I walked on at the University of Minnesota. When you transfer between 4-year schools, you got to sit out for a year. So I was a live blocking dummy for a year, imitating a guy from Michigan State or Wisconsin or whoever were playing that week. But I did that well enough that they gave me a full scholarship at the end of that run. And that year, or the following year, I ended up tied with. I ended up tied for the league in sacks in the Big Ten. And I only played half the downs. I was alternating senior. But yeah, Andre Tippett and I tied for first next in the Big Ten. My senior year, we were so bad, nobody had to pass against us, so I didn't get to rush the passer. So, I was a 12th round draft pick, 310th pick, 20 guys away from Mr. Irrelevant, and ended up, with a 12-year career. Lots of fun, and I think the struggles and the challenges and the things I went through in football really prepared me for the pros. Because you get to the pros and you're not the best guy on the field. I don't care who I mean, there's so many guys that have always been the best guy on their team, and they come in and that top draft pick and all that, and they get to the pros and somebody just mops the floor with them and they don't know what to do. For me, it was like, oh, here we go again. I was ready for it. So it was, it was a tough thing, but it was a good thing for me in the long run.
Awesome. So I have a question. So Minnesota, what have been your thoughts on PJ Fleck through his 4 seasons?
Oh, it's been awesome. The fact that they're back on the map. Historically, University of Minnesota has had some great teams, but it's been a long time. We going to bowl games and beating up Auburn on TV a couple of years ago. I mean, that was amazing. They just pummeled them. And last year they had a tough year, but they had so many problems with COVID. They had one of the challenges in playing at the University of Minnesota is when you don't have the depth some of the bigger programs have. They've got some great frontline players. You saw Winfield playing in the Super Bowl. Great player at the University of Minnesota too. But behind those front guys, you get somebody injured, something's out for COVID, and then all of a sudden you're not matching up. We had that same issue my senior year at Minnesota. We won our first 4 games, but we were playing in the Metrodome. The Metrodome had just been built, and the turf was terrible. We had so many guys injured. We lost our last 8. Right? So it was and I think that's kind of what they ran into this year. They didn't have the depth to overcome the COVID stuff.
Don't they have that really good receiver, Bateman?
Yeah, great player. And he's playing with a pretty average quarterback and still been able to do some amazing things.
Who does he remind you of that maybe you played with or against in the NFL?
Probably if I had to pick somebody, I would say Rod Smith.
Interesting.
Rod Smith is a guy that's not. You look at him, and you time him, and he was a. I don't even know that he was drafted. He was a free agent, but he's a really great route runner and great hands, and did big things when he got the ball. Actually, my last year with the Broncos, Rod was on the practice squad.
Wow, so beautiful. I have a question. Did you think you were going to get drafted?
Yeah. Atlanta had told me that if I was still available in the middle rounds, they were going to draft me. But unfortunately, the first 2 picks they had that year were defensive linemen, and that's what I was at the time. So, and I didn't know because there's no ESPN, there's no way to follow the draft. You're just sitting home by your landline waiting for the phone to ring. So, second day of the draft, midnight, and the phone rings. I'm asleep. It's Jenny Ann, the Broncos secretary, calling to tell me they had drafted me. Wasn't even a coach. So yeah.
Did you have a feeling you were going to be a day 2 pick, or were you just sitting by the phone for 2 straight days?
No, I was thinking it was going to be a day 2 pick. But I mean, you don't know. My agent had told me that to be ready, whether it was the later rounds or free agency afterwards, the phone was going to ring eventually that night. I was hoping to go in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, something like that. But what's the difference? I got a shot. Fortunately, Dan Reeves didn't really care what round you were drafted in. He was a late round draft pick himself, not a guy that was expected to be a star, and he played for a long time in the league. So he was always looking for guys like me.
Awesome. So you're a 12th round pick, obviously like trying to make the team. How long into your career until you stopped looking over your shoulder?
I knew I belonged pretty quick. I was really screwing up the offense's drills and stuff during training camp. They finally had to pull me out. Just get him out of there. So my first preseason game, I had torn a ligament in my elbow during practice, and they moved me from nose guard out to defensive end. And this was the week before the first preseason game. So they played me the 3rd quarter at defensive end. And I got my arm in a hook, and I ended up getting 2 sacks and forcing a fumble. And for some reason, I was playing against Seattle's starter that game. A guy named Ron Essink. I guess he was under punishment of some sort because he was still playing in the third quarter. But I got 2 sacks and forced a fumble. Elway was offensive player of the game. I was defensive player of the game. I made the team. And,
I have a question. I have a question. Were there any vets early in your career that really helped you kind of come into your own?
Yeah, there really were. It was a strange situation, Zach. The Broncos at that time were owned by a guy named Edgar Kaiser. Edgar Kaiser is a financier out of Canada. It was basically an investment. He wouldn't have known me if I was walking down the street. This is just, I bought this team. Now I'm turning it over, and he wanted to turn it over and resell it, make a profit. So we had 13 rookies make it that year. So over a quarter of our team had no experience whatsoever. And it wasn't necessarily because we were great players. It was because he wanted to lower the pay scale so he could sell the team. So it was a strange deal. But interestingly enough, we had some holdovers from that 77 Orange Crush team, that the guys that were there, Tom Jackson, Randy Gradishar, Bob Swenson, some guys that were just, princes, unbelievable. Not only taught us how to be ball players, but taught us how to be men. And that to me was so cool. And I try to do the same thing with young guys coming in. But yeah, there was a bunch of guys that kind of had success and understood what success looked like. And even though we obviously weren't going to have a lot of success that rookie year, they knew they had to get us up to speed so we could have success later.
Who was the first quarterback you ever sacked in a game?
First quarterback I ever sacked. It was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, first game. I got a
Bradshaw?
No, it was I can't think of his name. The guy that looked like Tom Selleck. He's a broadcaster now. I can't think.
I have no idea. I know you talk. Not. This is going to be completely wrong. Not Dave Wanstead.
No.
No. All right. That was because I thought the mustache. Yeah. Right.
But anyway, yeah, I had a lot of sense.
That's awesome. What was
the only sack in my career that was a lookout sack? When I ran by the tackle so fast, he turned around and yelled, "Look out!" So
I'll try and find the clip and put it on there. Who was the most difficult quarterback for you to sack in your whole career?
Wow. There was a number of guys that really got rid of the ball quickly. Guys like Dan Marino, Dan Fouts, that just got rid of the ball so quick. You could blow right by your guy and still not sack him. Although Marino was my favorite guy to sack, because you hit him, and even if you didn't sack him, he'd cuss and yell and scream at the offensive lineman you just beat. So that made it double the fun. Right. But yeah, the scrambling guys, actually Steve Young used to scramble a lot when he first was playing. Even Montana used to run around like crazy before when he was young. But anybody who scrambled a bunch, then you have to keep in your pass rush lanes, and it just makes it more difficult to get to him.
And I have a story that they said they're pretty sure it happened about you, and I want to see if you can make it valid. See if it's valid. They said that one time they were getting a person that their parents were getting their car registrations renewed in the 80s, and some guy tried to cut the line, and you stopped him.
No, I don't know.
No.
I don't cut the line.
No, you prevented the guy from cutting the line.
Yeah, right. No, no, that's quite possible. I just don't think that's right. I don't care who you are.
Interesting. And I have a question. Do you think they should redesign the uniform similar to the design you played with, the one you played with this kind of all orange and blue?
Yeah, I like the old uniforms. I guess the one I'm wearing, the newer color, the dark color now. I don't care. They go out there and they play, and it's every year it's another team. It's a different team, and even if you got some of the same guys, most of the same guys aren't there. All from 10. The average career in the NFL is less than 3 years.
Yeah,
they come, they go. So the same with the uniforms. It doesn't matter. It's the city. It's the stadium. It's the guys come and go.
Yeah. Who was the toughest toughest tackle for you to get through in your entire career to pass rush?
The toughest offensive lineman I played against was a guy named John Hanna. Hog Hanna played.
I interviewed him. Previous guest of the show. Hog Hanna. He's unbelievable.
Just they used to run these student body sweeps, and they pull both guards, and fullback would be in front, and usually as a linebacker you can kind of hide behind the defense or the defensive end, and that guard won't find you. But Hannah would always find you, and then bad things would happen to you. And he was like running into a stump or something. It's just solid.
In your opinion, is he the best interior offensive lineman of all time?
I can't say that. The best I played against, I can in my 12 years. So I played against a bunch of them. He was special.
What was your first Pro Bowl like?
That was awesome. To get invited to the Pro Bowl. That was actually the first year I played the full season at linebacker, and I made the Pro Bowl that year. It was crazy. And to go in and meet guys that I looked up to my whole life, and guys that when you play the game, you fly in on Sunday or on Saturday night. You got a meeting every hour and a half, so you can't go do anything. You eat a meal, you get up in the morning, you go to the stadium on a bus, and you play the game, and you get on a bus and go to the airport and go home. So it's not like baseball or basketball where they intermix. We just never really had a chance. So all of a sudden now the best players from the whole NFL are there together for a week with their families, and it's a cool deal.
That's awesome. So I've got one more question from a fan. They said, were there any quarterbacks that you wanted to sack, but in your career you never got a chance to?
Yeah, John Elway.
Not even in practice? You never got him once?
Oh, you can't touch John, man. Get out of there. So actually, I did get to sack him at the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl, they had this flag football thing going. It was after I retired, so it was retired guys playing. For some reason, I ended up on Steve Young's team, and we were playing against John's team. And I got to sack him a couple times. And I pulled his flag, yes, but I roughed him up a little too. Finally, I'm not going to get fired if I touch you.
At what point during your career did you know that, like, all right, I'm glad this guy's on my team?
Oh, right from the start. When he came in, he has so much athletic ability. Now, he wasn't great at the start. Very few quarterbacks are. It took him a while to understand that it's a mental game as much as a physical NFL. That's why guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning can win Super Bowls, and John himself at the end of his career. It's not because it's a mental game, but he was so gifted athletically, and to play alongside an offense with somebody with that kind of just raw talent. We knew as long as we kept it close to the end of the game, we were going to have a good chance to win at the end because John was calling the plays, not Dan at that point. So it was pretty amazing to play with him.
What was the team you looked forward to playing the most?
The Raiders. The Raiders were always our big competition. Either we won the AFC West, or the Raiders won the AFC West. Probably 9 of the 12 years I played in. For the Broncos. And the games were always close. It was knockdown, drag out football. They didn't care if you knew. Wherever Todd Christensen lined up, he couldn't block, so they'd run the other direction, and you knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. It was just, they don't care. They were just going to try and knock you off the ball. And I like that knockdown, drag out kind of stuff.
Were Raiders fans like as outlandish as people say they are?
Yeah, many of them are.
You leave it at that. That's interesting.
We used to play. I was played in LA when I was playing. They weren't in Oakland. It was at the Coliseum, and Dan Reeves' wife, got mugged in the parking lot at the stadium. They stole her jewelry and stuff. Just crazy stuff would happen.
That's unbelievable. Wow, I never knew that. I have a question. What did you get? Did you get kind of like used to the high elevation in Denver early on in your career, or did that kind of take a while?
Yeah, no, you adjust within 2 weeks.
Interesting.
The way your body adjusts is it breaks down. When it figures out you don't have the right red blood cell count, it starts breaking it down, and then it builds it back up. So once you're here for a little while, you're fine. You're actually better off to come in day of the game than you are to come in a week ahead of time, because like I said, it breaks down the red blood cells and then builds it back up to the area, to the spot it's supposed to be. So yeah, we were great. We had a great advantage playing at Mile High. You see those big fat guys sucking on the oxygen over there. Yeah, we got them now. We got them now. So yeah, it definitely helped.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see. I've got one more. So what was the kind of like the most vivid memory from your career as a Bronco? What was the kind of thing that stands out the most?
Wow. There were so many big things that went on while I was playing. Just probably the game itself would have been the drive game, to go into Cleveland and win that game. It was as hostile an environment as I'd ever been in. I mean, they drove around our hotel all night long, honking their horns and barking, trying to keep us awake. They lined the drive between the hotel we stayed at and the stadium. It was a couple miles, just completely lined with Browns fans, throwing dog bones and cussing and yelling. You know, I mean, it was us against the world. And the locker room sucked. I mean, it was a baseball locker room. You got to hang your suit on a hot pipe, and I mean, it probably wasn't a hot pipe because there was no hot water. I mean, it was just bad. And then to go under those circumstances and win the game was pretty amazing.
I saw a brief clip of an interview you did in recent months saying that you didn't think if you were playing the NFL, you didn't think you'd make it today. Why is that?
Well, I'm a football player. I mean, I'm not a height, weight, 40-time guy. I don't look good in shorts. I'll tackle you, I'll hit you, but they don't hit each other in practice. They don't do anything live until it gets to game time. I don't know how somebody with my skill set proves themselves until they're in a game, and they're going to play the high round draft picks in the game. They're going to play you. So somebody would have to get hurt. Something would have had to happen for me to even have a shot. So yeah, it's unfortunate because the skill set's so different now than it was. So different now in college than it was when I was playing. When I played in the Big Ten, it was a lot like the pro football game. It was a lot of 3 yards in a cloud of dust and whatever. Now it's everybody's just slinging the ball around. Once again, it's not unless you get the opportunity to prove yourself. There's lots of guys who never get that opportunity. I'm afraid I would have been one of them.
Do you think there are a lot of guys out there now who haven't gotten that chance, or do you think because of that, more kind of guys are coming out like guys that weren't really highly recruited are kind of breaking onto the scene? Do you think it's the first or the second?
I think it's both. I think there's a lot of talent out there. There always has been, but it's more than talent. I found out early on in my career, if I took the first step in the right direction before anybody else did, all the angles would change in my favor. Everything, and it didn't matter if I was running a 4.9 40 or like the guy playing the Super Bowl this week was about 4.4 or something crazy, right? But it didn't matter because if I took the first step before he did, I've got all the angles. The angles are in my favor. So that decisiveness, that understanding what you're supposed to do and allowing yourself to do it, that's what allowed me to be a good football player. Everybody in the NFL has talent, and there's a lot of guys outside of the NFL who have talent too. It's getting the opportunity, taking advantage of it, and being decisive. And that to me, that was my game.
Do you think the NFL should allow teams to have more players come to training camps just to scout more talent?
When I played, we had 110. We also had 2-a-day practices. It was knock down, drag out, last man standing makes the team kind of deal, full contact all through for 5 weeks. It's very different now. They've got like 70 guys, maybe 60, I don't know, something like that. And there's no contact or very little contact. You see the line play, especially the offensive line play, just much worse than it used to be.
Interesting.
I mean, if you're asked to do something completely different in the game than you're asked to do in practice, I don't know how you can prepare. So I wish I was pass rushing against some of these guys that are in the league now. It'd be fun.
Who's the guy in the league today that you'd love to be opposite sides from?
Wow. You know, there's a lot of good pass rushers in the league right now because that's what the league, and that's the game. It's rushing the passer, it's coverage. Even the linebackers. I mean, I played linebacker at 6'3", 255. And, you know, I was a lineman playing linebacker. You can't get away with that now because everything's a pass game. I think the game has always evolved. I mean, my grandfather played in the 20s, University of North Dakota, was All-American at University of North Dakota. And I made the mistake. I was at his house when I was a young teenager, and we were watching USC versus Notre Dame. And he didn't like Notre Dame because they were UND, University of North Dakota, not University of Notre Dame, right? So he didn't like that. And I made the mistake of saying, Grandpa, these guys are really big. I don't know if you could play nowadays. Hell, boy, I played when it was a man's game. Didn't have no face mask, didn't have no pads in my pants. Had to play both ways. But okay, it's all right. But yeah, the game just evolves and changes, and that's all right. You know, and the fact that I doubt I would have made a roster now, that's not unusual.
Who's a defensive guy in the league today that if he's on TV, you're watching him, regardless if you just kind of stop what you're doing and I want to see him play?
Yeah, I love watching Vaughn. Truthfully, I wish he would have played this year. He was in shape. He was ready. You could tell. I mean, he was going to get after it this year. And it just didn't happen for him. I had the opportunity to coach at the training camp his rookie year, and I was helping out with the pass rushers. And I went first day. I'm watching the pass rushers. I'm like, I don't have to talk to him. I go talk to these other guys. I'm not going to mess him up. He was so fast coming around the corner. And so it just crazy. I like the laws of physics shouldn't allow somebody to do that. He's just crazy that way. And then so I worked with the other guys, but just to see his career go the way it went, and you know, he had some problems at first off field and stuff, and to get DeMarcus Ware in there and kind of straighten him out and get things going the way I mean, he's had a tremendous career in Denver, and hopefully they'll re-sign him and he'll stay here because I just like to watch him play.
Speaking of Ware, he's eligible to be first ballot next year. Do you think he deserves it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, playing in Dallas, that won't hurt him. You know, all that time in Dallas.
They put Romo on the ballot. Romo went to 4 Pro Bowls. That's it. What the hell? Get the hell out of here. 4 Pro Bowls and 1 playoff win. Come on. So, yeah.
That's being a quarterback.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So I was just got one last question for you. How cool is it to get inducted into the team's Ring of Honor?
That was nice. It really was. The nice thing about it too is I went in the same year Dennis Smith did. Dennis and I played together. He was in charge of the secondary. I was in charge of the front seven, and to go in with my good friend and just cohort and mayhem was pretty fun.
I have a question. Since you retired and were inducted into the Ring of Honor, when you go to games, do you have to show an ID, or they just know who you are and they're like, oh, he's good?
No, I got to have a ticket. they don't know.
Really? You said that's my ticket right there, and you point.
Yeah, no, time goes by. I mean, it's been 25 years since I played for 26. So you know, it's a whole new generation, and most of the people who know me now know me from the what was it called, the Tecmo Bowl. I'm a superstar at Tecmo Bowl, which
I saw you're on a recent Madden I saw online.
Right. Yeah. The games keep us around.
That's unbelievable. And I before I let you go, I know you do a lot of speaking, and people can find you on your website. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I've been a professional speaker for longer than I was a professional football player. I'm doing a lot of virtual presentations at this point, but I talk about teamwork, courage, dedication, desire, honesty, forgiveness, goal setting, kind of universal keys to success, and apply it to your industry's challenges and your organization's successes and and challenges, and love it. The thing I miss most from football is the adrenaline, and I get the adrenaline when I get up in front of people to speak. So you can go to my website, karlmecklenburg.com. There's feedback there from past clients. There's video there. My contact information's there. I'd love to hear from people.